Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the SuperNova Astrology update for May 29th through June 5th, 2023. Well, we have just had one of the most intense weeks of astrology, with first Jupiter coming into square with Pluto, and we're still feeling this square of Jupiter and Pluto through the first couple of days of June. And then Mars coming into an opposition with Pluto, making a square then with the nodes of the moon, and so a grand fixed cross. And so over this last weekend, we were feeling Mars in exact square to the nodes of the moon, as well as Jupiter still in square with Pluto, really bringing forward the energy of the upcoming Pluto square, the nodes of the moon, which will be peaking out in July and August. Although we're already feeling this energy. So Mars this weekend in square to the nodes was bringing forward this square to the nodes of the moon are the north node. How are we going to get to where we're going? South node, what's keeping us back from the past? With the south node in Scorpio, what's been keeping us back from moving forward from the past is something hidden and mysterious. So these squares with the nodes of the moon, now we have to check this out because the nodes of the moon are switching signs on July 13th, I believe. And so that energy, we've only got like a month, 6 weeks left of the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. So it's like we're having a big, huge bloom of these energies. We've had all of these planets in Taurus, Jupiter moving over into Taurus, Mercury retrograde in Taurus, and now these squares just really triggering that south node, because the south node of the moon coming into play in Scorpio makes this relationship in the sky we've been feeling between Jupiter, Pluto, Mars, south node, all of the fixed signs represented in a grand fixed cross. Now, fixed energies are about establishing and maintaining and more of a resistance to change, right? So it's kind of about anchoring in to a new pattern with the North Node in Taurus. So this Taurus energy and the Mercury retrograde in Taurus has been taking us to our core, around our core values, because Taurus represents our wealth, our worth, what really matters to us. Venus, the ruler of Taurus, it's what makes us feel good, where we feel taken care of and loved. And so this incredible activation of Mercury spending so long in the sign of Taurus, as well as Uranus still in Taurus, North Node still in Taurus, and the Sun just moved out of Taurus into Gemini. But now in Jupiter moving into Taurus, and it's kind of like this rattling us to the core of like what really matters. No, what really matters. Like, and then taking it to a vibrational level, because Uranus and Taurus. Huge activation of Uranus and Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, or yeah, and will be in Taurus until 2026. So we haven't really felt the full activation of this, but now that Jupiter is coming into Taurus, that's what this is all about. So now these squares are starting to come off, but we're going to still feel them for the next few days. Mars square the nodes to the 1st of June, and Jupiter square Pluto into the first few days of June. But a very big shift of energy coming, because now Jupiter, as it comes out of that square with Pluto in 0 degrees Aquarius, Jupiter is now moving on to a conjunction with the North Node at 3 degrees of Taurus. So this is kind of interesting because we're just coming out. Mercury is just about to exit its shadow. It still hasn't exited its retrograde shadow till the 1st. And so we have to remember that the whole Mercury retrograde has not yet resolved. And that doesn't really happen until Mercury catches back up to Uranus and Taurus. And then at the beginning of Taurus, we've got Jupiter and the North Node. So Jupiter's expansion, Very powerful energy because we're coming up to the Sagittarius full moon, which Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. And so Jupiter here, and that's this Saturday, June 3rd. So Jupiter North Node is especially coming on the heels of Mercury retrograde in Taurus and of these squares with the nodes of the moon. Jupiter North Node is like, all right, it's time to establish a new direction and stand up and sit down. There's this energy of owning our wealth, our permission, our right to have the life we know we're meant to have here, to live the life we know we're meant to live. Most of us are so far away from this. Supernova Souls is just this aching in the heart of this of our tribe, just so badly wanting to express what's inside of us. And yet, what's inside of us is so full of treasures and wealth that, and it's been so persecuted and attacked through the Piscean age that a lot of times our greatest wealth, our greatest inner treasures, which is gifts, talents, skills we've worked on in other lifetimes, our greatest gifts are the most hidden. That's why this South Node Scorpio activation is so powerful. And then the North Node together with Jupiter means that Jupiter is then in opposition. So Jupiter opposite the South Node is on the one hand saying, yeah, it's time to move in the new direction of actually expressing, what's inside of you. And then Jupiter has an energy of amplification and it can kind of extract out energies. So with the South Node opposition, it's bringing to the surface anything we have not yet found down in the deepest dark, but it's all about finding that truth, those gifts, that power within us, what we came here to express. Why is there so much fear around it? I mean, it makes sense if we've been persecuted for our light and attacked or targeted over lifetimes again and again and again, you know? But we've been literally stuck at this threshold place, and it's getting darker and more scary here, you know? This last week, the energy was so intense, and I think we're also tapping into collective energies of this transition time that we're in. And it's making me think of just dark, deep, heavy feelings, like those feelings we've been running from our whole life or lifetimes. And yet it's like, if this is in the way of you being who you are and living your best life, then we've got to address it. We have no choice. And that's kind of the energy of this Pluto square the nodes of the moon that is just kind of this trepidation feeling, this inevitable feeling, this premonition feeling of massive changes that are coming. Pluto square the nodes of the moon, peaking out in July and August. So this energy is being so triggered, and Pluto is the destroyer. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, so it's about what's hidden, and it's also about our power, which is hidden power that we've been so programmed to fear. And then the fear keeps us from even exploring on any level that inner power. But it's our inner power. This is kind of the energy because Pluto turned retrograde at the beginning of May. And so Pluto is on his way, moving back into Capricorn on the 12th of June. And so that means that Pluto moving back to the end degrees of Capricorn is bringing up wherever we have allowed outside forces and energies to dictate our reality. And now, because Pluto in Capricorn represents structures, Pluto, our higher intuitive power, and Capricorn, authoritarian structures. So it's like authoritarian structures where we've agreed, to power outside of ourselves, first of all. In order to get a contract like this, you have to first have said, okay, you must be more powerful than me. I probably can handle my power better than I can myself. And we made these contracts and agreements. Sometimes these contracts were made when we were a youth in past lives. where we kind of, maybe we were chosen to enter a training or a temple or an experience, and we gave all of our faith and love to our teachers, but maybe they didn't all have our best interests at heart. It was a little bit more about identifying and targeting the most advanced souls again and again, moving into open arms of what seems like support in our greatest gifts. And it turns out to be actually a method of targeting and thwarting our process. The whole evolution, the whole energy of this place, this stage that we're at in this evolution, everything is about holding back this spiritual evolution in order so those energies, lower frequency vibrational energies that cannot exist in the higher frequencies, it's all designed for them, a fabricated, manufactured reality to keep humans in prison and from evolving outside of this dimensional reality so they can continue to feed on our power. So the next step for human evolution and for supernova souls and for all of us is all about taking back our power from where we've given it away. And what if where we gave it away is like Oz behind the curtain? It's like some weird hybrid creature that thinks has some sort of power because it's a bully. And where does their power come from? From us, where we willingly gave it away. And every day we willingly give it away again and again in this world, and it's beating us down, you know? And we've all had the experience of those narcissist relationship type situations where it's not like you can reason. There's no negotiating with terrorists. They are not going to give you your power back. You have to stand up and say, hey, that's not yours, it's mine. But is it mine? Is it ours? Can we handle it? And that's part of the lie that they want us to believe, is that it isn't our power. This is our God-given right through existence. Human soul in a body, the highest form of authority. An advanced soul with previous experience in higher dimensions? Get out of town. I think we're going to evolve to a place where we're going to be looking back and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we let those little creepy rascals convince us we couldn't handle our own power and keep us held back for so long. But see, we're right here at the edge. And the story says that when we move over dimensional frequencies, which is happening in incremental rates, there's a big shift that comes, right? But there's also just this process of incremental changes in vibrational frequency. But we're coming to a big, big activation of vibrational frequency. And so, but I wanted to point out the energies of this last week that have been very, very difficult. And almost it's like healing and tapping into collective pain of a growing disconnect. Supernova souls, we are in touch with this. We've been battling with it. We've been in it. We are like, have been having to face the music, but like most of humanity has been lying along. And there's an agenda, huge agenda, to disconnect us from this greatest power we have, which is our connection to source as a birthright in our body. So people are not even realizing it, and then gradually over time finding this deep and profound disconnection in their life from anything that matters and anybody who will talk to them about anything that matters. And it's a disconnection from source, it's disconnection from God. It's the end game for those rascals. And so there's something very important, because it's like I've been thinking about this for supernova souls, sort of finding yourselves. You've had these moments of elation, of remembering, of knowing that this is about moving forward and coming into who we are, and like, okay, yeah, makes sense. It's can tap into the higher truth and higher vibrational energies, and then boom, knocked back down into the dungeon, And this last week was like that, because we had Venus square Chiron. Venus in Cancer, so sensitive, and square to Chiron in Aries, the deepest wounds around where we've given our life force away and our power and our freedom and gone along with the program, other people's agendas, And it's that feminine finding herself weak, alone, like malnourished and abandoned in the corner, and she has to somehow gumption up all the power to take our world back. And she's just exhausted and overwhelmed from how hard it's been. And that's okay. Just let yourself feel these things, because it really has. We are in a fight for our lives and our world, and most people have no freaking clue what's going on. But you are there on the front line, Supernova. Thank God. And so we have to remember, it makes me think of when Edgar Casey describes, he's a sleeping prophet and he's a psychic, but he did it in his sleep. He put himself in a trance, like self-hypnosis. And so he would describe in one of the, some writings, he described what his process was. He wasn't always conscious of it, but when he was conscious of that process of going into this place of hypnosis to access the Akashic records and the higher worlds, there was a period of time of dark, desolate, alone, where he was moving. It's kind of like a picture of moving up through, and I explain all this in my video, Esoteric Loneliness. If that calls to you, seek that out on YouTube. And so there is a path of through these lower astral planes, and it's very, very dark and alone, but then he sees and he has to focus in order to get through that part. He has to focus on one point of light. Then he can get up to the Akashic records. And I just was like, I think this is a metaphor for us about the process of shifting dimensional frequencies. That just before you break through to a new frequency, it's very, very dark and lonely, right? Because you're just about to take it to another level. So keep that in mind if you're going to these places. Also tapping in supernova souls. We're connected, we're energetically so sensitive, and feeling this kind of uncomfortable disconnect that's growing. It's, just of these last few years of political and social agenda, you can see how this kind of started this process of a deep internal disconnect from anything that matters and in humanity. And so it's giving us an opportunity, though. All of these situations in this end game pathology, end game situation is giving us opportunities to tap into that power that we have, giving us opportunities for miracles. How can you have a miracle if you don't have a need for a miracle? Okay? Keep that in mind too. And maybe that's that bright light that's just like, okay, just focus on that bright light. Focus on that future. It's possible. Focus on what you know. There's so much more to this story, and you're not buying it anymore, you know? And so this is a very powerful energy it's everything that Pluto, it's like we're feeling this approaching impending doom of Pluto square the nodes, because Pluto as the destroyer is going to break down, is a breaker downer, right? Transformer. But Pluto will only break down what's not true. So our lives, our world, our ego, our reality we're being rattled. Our cage is being rattled. We're being shaken to the core so that we can finally get into those core values of what really matters, So know that if the wrecking ball has come to your life, it's only taking away what's not true, and focus on what's true with a deliberate determination, 24/7, coming to this place of the way, the center, the truth, the spiritual truth of who you are. It's like we have to be in constant vigil with this right now. But the energies are shifting to support us in this. And so what's happening is that first we're feeling over the next few days, the squares relieve. We're already started to feel like a little bit of relief from these squares. And then that Jupiter North node, which is kind of like boom, new direction, establishing um, life based on your core values, whole life, not just the little bit of time you put aside for it, right? Your whole life based on your true values, from waking to sleeping every day, complete alignment of your truth, except for we're scared of our truth. And our truth is hidden under a whole bunch of dark shit. And that's this extraction. But it's so powerful because it's finally that breakthrough energy. And recognizing the shaking up to our core values is showing us where we haven't been really living. And the energies of the astrology this next week are about, okay, yeah, we can't just keep being in this in-between world of the living dead. It's time to live again. So just right at the end of the month and moving into June, we've got that Jupiter North node. And at the same time, Vesta, asteroid goddess Vesta, the ruler of the sacred flame. This is our deep spiritual passion, but it's our creative passion and spiritual purpose together, right? It's a sacred flame in our heart that's never gone out, except for that most of us don't even realize it's there. So get ready. Um, so this is happening, Vesta coming up to Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is higher frequency vibration. In Taurus, it's about embodiment of higher frequency vibration. So this is about like literally stepping into the fires of life, of creative fires, and fusing together again with this sacred passion and purpose. This is a soul energy that's been with you every single lifetime of your earth experience. And yet, most of us are so disconnected from it. So it's like the closest thing to who we really are and the furthest thing away from what we can really embody. And that's changing. So it's a massive higher frequency vibration of this creative passion. And so for this week, it's like hard coming out of the squares, but it's a really great time to kind of leave a little space in your life and be like, okay, so what is this core value? What really matters? What's the energy, the feeling of what really matters to me? And then find this project. You may have always thought about doing a project, a creative project. It could be a tiny little project to start. Go easy on yourself, but maybe something you put aside that you were working on before that you'd like to revive, or maybe something you've thought about doing for a long time. Find a project, find a place that you can get so into what you're doing, everything else goes away. This is all Source wants us to do. This is what we came here to do with God. And when we talk about co creation, this is what it means. So it's like allowing yourself to have space to seek out and remember and experience, like losing yourself completely in a project where you're just absolutely in co creation. And because this energy can kind of set the tone for the whole next 4 months of this Pluto square the nodes and Venus retrograde at the same time in Leo. And kind of like redirect our course, because Jupiter North Node is saying new course, new direction, and establishing it, right? We're not waffling around anymore. And that can only be valid and like tangible if it's alignment with these deepest passions, right? And so it's very powerful because at the same time, we've got Venus. This is on the 3rd of June. Venus is coming in, but we're feeling it as of the next couple of days into a trine with Neptune. So Venus is coming to the end degrees of Cancer. Just came off of the very painful square with Chiron. Oh, the deepest vulnerabilities. Now in a trine, coming into trine with Neptune, super sweet. And Venus trine Neptune, Venus in Cancer, this is about the love and the power of nurturing in a harmonious trine, water trine, with Neptune in Pisces, the rehash, the review, the reimagining, the reawakening, the claiming the magic of the Piscean age that was stolen from us. And so it's like, now this is interesting. So it's a dream of this new earth where we're the only way forward, and the only thing that defines the new chapter, the next chapter, really has to do with coming back into connection, interconnectedness with earth source through our manifest world, and embodying source, and interacting with nature and hopefully some other humans um in this source energy, bringing heaven to earth right here, living in the living truth, the living water, our expression of God consciousness here. It's all that matters. And this is the activation that's coming. So now It's interesting though, because Ceres, asteroid goddess Ceres, is in Virgo and coming into an opposition with Neptune, and that will peak out in the second week of June. But we're already feeling this. And so that means that when Venus comes into trine with Neptune, Venus will sextile Ceres in Virgo. And this is a very powerful energy because Ceres opposite Neptune is saying, we've got to come back to the dream of Earth. The dream of Earth was stolen in the Piscean age because the Piscean age is about connection to spirit. And yet the powers, the control powers through religious structures took away that connection, actively worked against that connection by demonizing everything natural and good and beautiful, saying you had to go through the church to get to God. So, like, that spiritual energy was controlled, right? We could only access it in the way they said we could. But Pisces is like magical possibility. It's just like all dimensions in one. It's the primordial soup of what's possible. So Venus in Cancer is dreaming a dream of new Earth based on nurturing again. Earth coming back to Earth. The birth of the etheric body. So, because Ceres to me, the asteroid represents the etheric body of Earth. So it's telling us the story of our relationship to Earth as a mother goddess. And so in opposition to Neptune is saying she got killed, raped, and cast aside and buried with scrolls, you know, and now it's time to revive her and heal her and love her. And that's everything that this Venus retrograde is about in Leo, which will also, it goes, the Venus retrograde will start on the 23rd of June, and Venus will go direct on the 9th of September. So it's going to be mostly over August, the end of July, August, September. But Venus moves into Leo this week on the 6th. So that's kind of how the whole story starts. And it's all about an empowerment of the feminine, the just dark, clearing the dark distortions of the feminine so that she can come back into the light of expression. And very, very powerful journey. This is a massive initiation. It's like, so this is what's going on with Venus here, because it's like she's preparing for this initiation is going through. And so first she's coming into this conjunction or trine with Neptune, beautiful water trine of possibilities. Like, oh, I see it, I feel it, I remember on a cellular level, these Gaia codes, what Earth wants to become, and an awakening of that energy. And Ceres in Virgo saying a rebirth into innocence is what's required, into our innocent connection, being a child of the mother and the father, in this coming back into this innocence and co-creation rather than separation and shame. So that's really what the South Node is triggering, is clearing out all of the hidden shame that's keeping us from receiving the bounty and the wealth of who we really are and the life that we deserve as our birthright, as organisms of consciousness with a direct connection to source. So this is huge for supernova souls. What that South Node is uncovering is deep hidden program shame, and I know we keep clearing it, but there's more. Because for some reason, most supernova souls don't feel worthy of the life they're meant to live. So how are we going to move into it? What deep in our consciousness is keeping us in this illusion of separation? We don't deserve to have what we need to survive? This all has to do with the persecution of the Piscean age and going back to the whole long story of targeting that started back in Atlantean time. So we're undoing, deprogramming, deconstructing all of the stories that have kept the feminine power disempowered and which is exactly what's kept us stuck in the spiritual evolution. So we've got to get her back. We got to recapture our queen and get her back on her throne. And that is what the Venus retrograde is about. At the same time as Pluto square the nodes, just destroying into little pieces anything that is not true in your life. So, wow. But listen to this. So we've just had this intense square, and with Mars moving into Gemini. Mars moving into Leo, and the Sun was moved into Gemini at the same time. But Mars moving into Leo happened exactly with Pluto at 0 degrees, Jupiter right there at the beginning of Taurus. So it was like this very powerful square of energy. Venus is now moving in, will now move into Leo on the 6th. And that means that Venus will be coming into those same squares. But now these planets have separated out a little bit. So Venus will have an exact opposition with Pluto on the 6th as she moves into Leo. And it's interesting because it's like these squares happening to first Mars and then Venus in Leo as they move into Leo. It's kind of like, oh, shine, expression, light, like, oh, like joy, the energy of Leo and the sun. And then it's like, oh no, you don't get to have that, you know? And it's like, oh, really? Yeah, because you believe deep down inside somewhere that you don't get to, whatever. So this is where we're at. And so Pluto will be opposing, Venus will oppose Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius um, on the 6th. And that's very powerful, right? Because it's like Venus moving into Leo on the 6th is saying, all right, it's time for the initiation of the feminine back into her light. And to have an opposition with Pluto at that same day says that the Pluto moving back into Capricorn and this retrograde cycle of Pluto and the square to the nodes has everything to do with breaking the authority contracts that have kept the feminine down within all of us. So Venus will go on to square the nodes, just what Mars just did this weekend on the 9th of June, and then square up with Jupiter on the 11th. But because these are a little bit further apart, we won't have such an intense T square energy. It's kind of like, but Venus is kind of feeling vulnerable up against a lot of forces, because it's like opposite Pluto, square the nodes, square Jupiter. But it's that preparation. And at the same time, Venus isn't trying to, just still will be feeling that trine to Neptune. The trine to Neptune will last through the 6th. So now the other thing that's happening during that time that Venus is taking her turn in these intense squares, which is like Venus opposite Pluto is saying, oh, you think you're going to just take your power back? I don't think so. And then square the nodes is like frustration that the feminine has not been able to move forward one bit since the Piscean age, and the beginning of the Piscean age and beyond. And then Venus square Jupiter, breakthrough on the 11th. Venus in Leo square Jupiter and Taurus, a breakthrough on our understanding of that it's our self-worth and program shame that's keeping us from coming into our expression. So Venus and Leo is about the expression of the feminine. And in all of us, that's our intuitive side, our sensitive side, our emotional side. And this is what the voice that hasn't been heard in our world, you know? And so as a supernova soul in a male body or a female body, we're here to express this feminine side to this truth, to bring back the pieces, to bring humanity back into connection. And how can we ever do that if we're stuck in disconnection? And that's been kind of, I guess, maybe the underlying core energy of these last week of squares. So Venus is going to be making these same squares, but at the same time, we've got Mercury coming out of retrograde shadow. Okay, so Mercury exits retrograde shadow on the 1st of June. And then finally meets back up with Uranus. Now we talked about Vesta coming up to Uranus. So that means Mercury is going to hit Uranus and then Vesta. And so that will be on the 5th, on 6th, 7th, around there, or Mercury will hit these planets and activate. And so this is something we've been waiting for since the beginning. When Mercury started the retrograde, he turned at 15 degrees Taurus, 2 degrees away from where Uranus was at 17 degrees Taurus at that time. So this whole retrograde season, the last 6 weeks to 2 months of energy, has all been about this. And we haven't gotten there yet, right? Mercury's not out of shadow yet, but just in the next couple of days. And it's like, all right, get your engines ready. Are you ready to rumble? Because now we got when Mars and Venus come out of these squares and are established in Leo, it's like, whoa, both planets in Leo, whoa, and It is our time to shine and to access the creative forces that allow us to have the confidence to shine. Because think about it, when you're in your co creative process, you don't give a crap about what anybody else thinks. You know, you also, all of your problems, the big, huge, daunting problems of your life become very small. And you have energy to get things done because you're on fire about life. I know it's hard to remember because it's been a while. Get ready. you know and it's a perfect activation as we move into the energy of the new renaissance. And um so there's been a message about get your creative juices flowing, because it's a big part of the next chapter. Supernova souls are going to be demonstrating for humanity what's possible, this perhaps massive creative activation. And the cool thing about Vesta being involved is that Vesta is our inner passion, our creative passion, like what really matters to us, those core values, but it's also our spiritual purpose. Now, this is powerful because right when Vesta comes, when Mercury meets up, just in between this time, between Vesta Uranus and Mercury Vesta Uranus, that's when we're going to be having the full moon in Sagittarius, a fire sign. And so Jupiter's been so powerfully activated moving into Taurus and in these squares. And as the ruler of Sagittarius, it's telling us something with this Sagittarius full moon. Sagittarius full moon stepping up, seeing the bigger picture, seeing the further out horizon, reactivating our spiritual dreams and visions, and getting back on our spiritual quest. So, very, very powerful that this is all happening right when Vesta, Uranus, Mercury kind of starting to come together, and also Venus, Trine, Neptune, sextile series. Um, so a rebirth of our innocence and our connection to the earth, a rebirth of our new world. Like it's like we're coming to the end of the Piscean age, but we never got a Piscean age. We never got the mysteries, the miracles, the revelations, right? It was just blanketed in darkness. We had it at the very beginning of the Piscean age with the Christ mysteries, and then it was just under attack, you know? And all of those spiritual groups of people that have worked so hard to bring in that impulse of Christ consciousness had to be dispersed. We haven't been able to find each other since. This is huge because we're coming to the end of the Piscean age, and we've talked about the beginning and the end of the signs having a bloom of energy. So it's like we can't get out of the Piscean age without a bloom and a recapturing of those mystical, magical miracles. And is this the intensity of our world right now? Taking us to that precipice, taking us to the brink. How can you receive a miracle if there's not a need for one? Keep this in mind because you are that miracle energy. You are that one point of bright light that gets us through all the darkness. I mean, here we are, supernova souls. We're on the cutting edge, and it's up to us to be strong and brave enough to take back our life and start living. And that's this creative activation and passion activation of our spiritual purpose. Living, really living, fully living and expressing. We have no other choice, and we cannot hang out down here in the lower astral planes with the living dead. Raise the bar, go for gold, set your vibe high, and let those energies that resonate there come find you from your establishment in this energy. And that's definitely the energy of the Jupiter with the North Node there, just right at here at the end of the month, moving us into the month of June, expanding into possibilities for true internal wealth. And so very powerful activation, and congratulations on making it through this last week of astrology. And I'm so glad we're connected through this. I hope you'll consider being a part of the Sagittarius full moon activation. That's going to be Saturday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That will be just 12 hours from the exact full moon happening later that night in Mountain Time. And so we'll be in a place to really tap in and vibrate and resonate with these energies through this full moon. Because for this full moon on the 3rd, we have that Venus trine Neptune sextile series and Vesta, Uranus, Mercury coming together. And so it's time to shoot off in that rocket, you know, break through these lower dimensions where we've been kept a prisoner, you know, and just bust on through to the other side and get going on living life instead of dying life. So thank you so much for your support. Supernova Souls, it means so much to me. If you're part of the Soul Tribe or the Gold Tribe, the Soul Tribe membership is $10 a month. That gets you a Friday video update, monthly Q&As, and lots of resources for Supernova Souls. And then all of that is included in the gold membership, as well as access to the new and full moon activations. That's 2 a month, and the live sharing circle after, so we can really be seen and heard by each other and connect. Supernova Souls. It's a very powerful and important time for us. So buckle up, Buttercup. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully at that activation or the next update. And thank you so much for being with us, being with me, bringing your offering of support energetically, being a part of these videos. We're all together through this. Don't forget it. So I love you so much, Supernova Souls. I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.